We're going to turn back to politics and new polling showing former President Trump with a commanding lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in a hypothetical 2024 matchup. According to a new Morning Consult poll, President Trump leads with 48% support among potential GOP primary voters. Governor DeSantis follows with 31%. No other candidate has double-digit support. Sam Stein, I feel like this is the first time we've seen it flip this way, where usually it's Ron DeSantis who's got the edge over Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, I mean, the national numbers have stayed like that, what you saw. What we've seen recently is that DeSantis in key states has, in fact, moved ahead of Donald Trump. Now, this is all very hypothetical, right? Donald Trump has declared. Ron DeSantis has not. And, you know, tying this to our last conversation, you see Donald Trump, as much as some Republicans wish it weren't so, Donald Trump does continue to have a pretty good grip on a very significant portion of the party. And until someone wrests that from him, I think it's fair to say this is still Donald Trump's party. What happens when Ron DeSantis jumps in, assuming he does? I mean, is that number going to go up, or will he wither under attacks from Trump, as you know he's going to get? And so, you know, if I were Trump, it's been a terrible couple months politically for obvious reasons. It's very bizarre launch to his campaign. We haven't really seen him at all in public. The most predominant news stories have been his handling of these documents at Mar-a-Lago and his dinner with Nick Fuentes. Even with all that, to sit at 48% in hypothetical primary matchup is not so bad.
So it's so interesting. Before we get to Joe Biden, Jem Homary, it's true this launch for Trump. Wasn't he supposed to be out on the trail? Wasn't there an announcement of events?
I think he's doing something. I think he's doing
South Carolina.
He's going in February.
In February.
Early February, I think.
All right.
Soon, relatively soon. But it is sobering because when I saw Trump out on the campaign trail during the fall elections, he just wasn't good. You know, there's one thing about can he come back? Will people continue to fall?
Will there be the crowd size?
Well, there were big crowds. There were really big crowds, but he himself just wasn't good. You know, so it's there's the question of are people done? Are people saying wow, maybe I like this guy, but he continues to make the the Republicans lose, or wow, it's just too much and he's crazy. But then there's another question about, is he up for this? Is he any
There's a
good?
lot that's changed. He's got 5 legal cases, swirling around him. Ivanka and Jared are not involved. There are people who have left his inner core. This is a man that lives on sort of being constantly massaged. Yes, we agree with you, sir. Yes, you are. I don't think the same core group is there.
And he's not doing
But the legal
anything.
challenges have got to be in his head.
When he talks, that's all he talks about was his own grievances, and the crowd didn't seem to like that.
If I'm Donald Trump, I have some pep in my step over Joe Biden's classified document imbroglio.
Yeah.
And also, I think that Ron DeSantis is way overhyped, way too early. The expectations that have been set for Ron DeSantis
when he hits national,
are so
could
huge,
be tough.
and he's got to go national. I've heard from so many people that he's just underwhelming in small circles. Maybe on stage, he's a little bit better, and sometimes on Fox News, but he just is so vaunted right now and set up for expectations that I think are impossible.
I totally agree with you on that, and we'll wait and see. And as far as the documents are concerned, Willie, I mean, look, we don't know. We're going to let both investigations play out, and there are a lot of questions that are not answered, so nobody knows nothing. But I would say, go ahead, Republicans, definitely squawk as loud as possible about how important the Biden document investigation is. Please do, because what you're doing is highlighting how important the Trump Mar-a-Lago documents case is. This is something you wouldn't say earlier. So finally, they've sort of come to understand the importance of the Mar-a-Lago documents.
It also highlights the contrast in the two cases,
of course,
which is more than a year of obstruction on one hand and immediately handing them over from what we know so far. On the other hand, Jonathan Lemire, Donald Trump isn't going to go anywhere. He doesn't know how to go away. He won't do that. He's going to stay in this race. But you and I have talked about this as well. He's not really running a presidential campaign. He said he's running for president. And yes, it's still early, and he does have that event coming up in South Carolina. But it feels like he believes he can kind of run for president from Mar-a-Lago, just being who he is, clinging to the people who will always be in his corner, whether you want to call that a movement or a cult or whatever it is. But he knows he's got his people with him, and it seems DeSantis for now just represents the alternative. You know, he's sort of candidate X, something that's not Donald Trump. It remains to be seen if he even gets in the race and if he is the guy who will stand up to Donald Trump.
Yeah, there were questions in 2016 about Trump, whether he just wanted to win and didn't really actually want to be president. This time around, there were real questions about whether he even really wants to go through a campaign, whether he has the fire in the belly to do it. Now, we should note, though, there is that event coming up in a few days in South Carolina. Also, his campaign outreach has picked up some. The email blasts have started again. There are been some meetings at Mar-a-Lago. So there are some baby steps here that maybe show some life to this campaign. But as Donald Trump starts his, there are still questions about the timeline for President Biden. As we know, he has said repeatedly publicly he intends to run in 2024. There's been no official announcement yet. There's questions as to the timing as to when that would be. White House aides had suggested it would be March or even April for two reasons. First, President Obama, when he declared his reelection bid in 2011, he pegged early April to do so. Also, by holding off, it helps for fundraising purposes. But aides had told me, we were first to report this a few weeks ago, they were moved up that timeline. They now think maybe soon after the State of the Union, which is coming in early February. And now aides have reiterated, no chance of an announcement before the State of the Union. It will be sometime after that. And they're saying, at least for now, that the controversy surrounding the classified documents won't change that timeline. So, Mike.